Hey guys, Ezra here and welcome back to another review. And on today's video, I want to do a review on Superman the movie, or specifically the 1978 movie starring obviously the late and the great Christopher Reeve, and it was directed by Richard Donner. And obviously, I'm doing this review to prepare myself for the new Superman movies, and I think the new Superman movie has a lot of inspiration from the 1978 movies, and it's not hard to see why, because this is the OG Superman. Is I would say the best depiction of Clark Kent and Superman, and all of that thanks to Christopher Reeve. So I'm gonna be I don't think I'm gonna recap the entire plot. I think I'm just gonna talk about like my favorite moments in the movie and why this movie is so special and why Christopher Reeve performance is so perfect as Superman, and even like the recent actor always they're always gonna be compared to Christopher Reeve, and it's not hard to see why. And let me just start with how I would say how special and magical this movie was, especially if you are watching this movie from 1978, and especially the tagline of this movie is that you'll believe a man can fly. And safe to say, after watching the movie, even though that I was this movie on like present times, with now we have like CGI and visual effects, which is like great, but I still believe that this man could fly. I still feels like this movie is really really special. So the story, obviously we follow Kal-El, or Clark Kent, played by Christopher Reeve, and it's about him trying to take off the mantle of Superman and then try to be the symbol of hope and protecting everybody in Metropolis. And yeah, it's such a simple storyline because I think the villain was Lex Luthor, and I think this version of Lex Luthor was a bit more, I guess, comical in a way. Like the entire movie feels a lot more comical. And there's nothing wrong with that because I think that's why this movie is so special even to this very day. And I want to start with obviously, let's just start with the obvious one, Christopher Reeve, as Superman. I think he's the perfect Clark Kent and Superman, and I think I want to. The reason why it was perfect is because I think Christopher Reeve was able to portray two different characters. When he was playing Clark Kent, wearing a glasses, and then he has like a different performance as Clark Kent because he's playing him to be like this goofy guy, that was like super nervous and super like basically like fumble the lines, where it's like, oh yeah, yes, Louis, I found this news right here, maybe you actually like this, like that's the way they talk is absolutely fantastic. I especially love the scene where I think when Clark was actually in Louis Lane's house, and then you see him like taking off the glasses, and then slowly he's standing up straight, and I think this is the great choice by Christopher Reeve to basically, again, even the body language, between Clark Kent and Superman, there is that difference, and I think it was so convincing because I usually when I saw Superman, I was like, oh, it's just like the disguise is just like he's wearing the glasses and then that's it. But Christopher Reeve is actually way different because he's actually playing like changing his personality and changing his body postures in a way, and I think that completely worked. I absolutely love that. And of course, like the flying sequence itself, even to this day, I still think the flying sequence are very very good looking. I think it's way better than the sequel, like Superman 3 and Superman 4, which is like really really bad. But this one from 1978 is like, yeah, it's way better than the sequel, and I think it still holds up. And I especially love the sequence where Superman saving a bunch of people, even saving a cat, like, and saving like the Air Force One plane, and I think it's just such a beautiful moment. I also love the first time where he transformed to Superman, which is kind of cheesy, where he's like walking into like a door and then like he spin the door really fast and then like he's just changed as Superman. But I do like it that where he saved Lois Lane and then like he grabs the helicopter, and then like he's slowly rising up to the building, and I love the line where Superman said that, "Don't worry, ma'am, I got you," and Lois was like, "You got me? Who's got you?" Like I love that line. I think it was so funny. I love that. Besides Christopher Reeve, obviously Lois Lane played by Margot Kidder, right? I think Margot Kidder does a great job as Lois Lane. I love it. I think the chemistry between the two of them are working. I love it. I think it's a cute chemistry in my opinion between Superman and Clark Kent and Lois Lane. I love it a lot, you know. And I guess speaking of the villain Lex Luthor, I think again, like I said before, this version of Lex Luthor is played by Gene Hackman, and I think Gene Hackman does a good job as the character because he's not exactly a guy with like superpower, but he has the brain. He's smarter than Superman, and I think that when the movie cuts back to him, it feels like a I don't know, it feels like a bit of a different movie in a way because like like I think his version of Lex Luthor is much more comical in a way, but I think somehow they were able to make him, you know, smarter than Superman because there is a scene in the movie later on, you know, where he has the kryptonite stone and then he give it to Superman, you know. So like yeah, he's basically outsmarting Superman. And that's the power of Lex Luthor, you know, because he knows that Superman is a good guy, so he's not gonna be like he's not gonna harm Lex Luthor, and he start using that against Superman, you know. And I'm really looking forward to see Nicholas Hoult performance as Lex Luthor, you know, because that's exactly his version of Lex Luthor, where he knows that Superman is a good guy, he's not gonna punch him, so he's gonna use that kindness against him, which I absolutely cannot wait to see that. But yeah, despite being like a comical Lex Luthor, I think Gene Hackman still does a good job, and I do think that the movie managed to build like some stakes, I guess, in the end there, you know, where Superman saved a bunch of people from an earthquake, you know, from a dam getting destroyed, and then I think saving like another, I think stopping another missiles and basically saving the California, I guess, you know, that's because like Lex Luthor is planning to drown like one of the you know, one of the western, I guess, like coastline, you know, so he can make his own I guess like resort or hotel, which is like a really insane plan, you know, like, oh, that's your plan. It's not exactly a world domination, but it's just like, let me just sing this coastline of the US, and then I'm just gonna build my own resort there, you know, build my own empire there, which is like, wow, okay, that's your plan. Which is kind of like, again, like I said before, it's kind of comical, but it kind of works for the stakes of the movie, which I have no problem with that. And yeah, I guess besides that, you know, I want to praise the score. Obviously, I forgot to mention that the score by John Williams, you know, the Superman March is absolutely fantastic. You know, like it's one of the best theme song by Superman. Like even to this very day, people still referencing John Williams' score, and it's not a surprise because like I mean, it's John Williams, so obviously he's gonna compose an iconic score, and even to the new Superman movie, you know, even in the trailer, they are remixing the Superman theme by John Williams, and it's not hard to see why. I'm glad they do that because this theme is so iconic. I love it a lot, you know, and I think it makes me excited. It makes me pumped every single time I heard the theme. You know, it feels like, yeah, this is Superman. You feel hope, you feel strength, and you feel courageous, I guess, you know, and it's so fantastic, you know, the way the theme just play in the opening credits. And that's why this movie is such a classic even to this very day, because I think it has a good cast, you know, except maybe Marlon Brando, because apparently there is some behind the scenes storyline that feels weird, you know. I can't really speak too much about that. But essentially he's kind of like a lazy, I think. I don't know. I think I like his performance as a Jor-El, to be honest, and the way he says, you know, Krypton instead of Krypton, like all the other movies. You know, he's the only one that says Krypton. But yeah, I still love it. You know, I still think that the performers are all good. You know, I love the action sequence. I think they're well made. You know, even at you know, at the time in 1978. You know, I love the music by John Williams, and yeah, I kind of see why this movie is still looking back on as the classic, and I think that's why Christopher Reeve is like the best Superman and the best Clark Kent, and even like the future actor can't exactly match Christopher Reeve's performance because he was so special. Even like David Cornsweet, I think, which is like the actor who plays the new Superman, I think it's obvious to me that he took some inspiration from Christopher Reeve's performance, and it's not hard to see why. It's very unique. I love it a lot, and it definitely influenced Superman as a franchise. And even to this very day, people still trying to replicate some of the scenes itself, you know. And of course, this movie doesn't necessarily have Superman fighting, you know, a bad guy here. You know, that's gonna happen in Superman 2, and I watched the Richard Donner cut of Superman 2, and I love it, because there's like a natural progression of the story, and it kind of makes me wonder if Richard Donner was actually able to helm the entire Christopher Reeve Superman series, and I think the series will be much more different because again, as much as people love to talk about the first movie and the second movie, especially the Richard Donner cut, the third and fourth movie is a huge fumble. I think those two movies doesn't necessarily met the standard of the two movies, and the two movie was directed by Richard Donner because apparently they filmed the first movie and the second movie back to back, but apparently there's some problem with the producers, which is like, again, is like Superman is a great movie, but the producer who is responsible for it is really really dumb, and they make it, and because of these dumb producers, the series kind of went off, kind of like went off the rails, with Superman 3 and Superman 4, and it really sucks, because I would really love to see Richard Donner, the late Richard Donner, to actually directed all the Superman movie, and I think it would be an amazing series if he was actually at the helm of like the future Superman movies. I guess if I have to criticize this movie, I don't like the ending because I think the ending is kind of stupid, where Superman just like reverse the trajectory of the planet, and somehow there's like, like reverse time, and Jor-El kept like reminding him that, hey, don't do this because this is very very dangerous, and it feels like there is like barely any, I guess that there's barely any consequences. I guess the consequences is like in Superman 2, you see General Zod getting freed, but at the same time, I don't think that's like the act of reversing time. I think that's like, I don't know. Like, I think there's no consequences from reversing the time, which is kind of weird, where Jor-El just keep building this moment that, hey, don't do this because there will be a big consequences, But I don't really see the consequences, especially after two movies, in the Richard Donner cut, it was the same ending where he just like, reversing the time, and I hate that. To be honest with you guys, I love this movie, but I don't like the ending. I think the endings are pretty stupid in my opinion, because like there is nothing came from it, and I think it was just like you start thinking about like the plot hole in this. Like, wait, if he's like reversing time, there should be like two Superman, right? Because he's reversing time, But there's only one Superman. There's like, again, usually when a movie tries to play with time, there is a good chance that the movie might have some plot hole, and that's exactly what happened with this movie. There is some plot hole here where I think that, wait, there should be two Superman, right? Because like you're reversing the time, but there's only one. Like, I don't know. I can't explain it, but there's a reason why I don't really like that. Same thing with why I don't I don't like the second movie has the same ending. But to be fair, in the second movie, Richard Donner that does came out and said that, well, if he's actually finished filming the Superman 2 in 1978, then he will actually film a different ending. So I guess there's that. It's about like time. I guess like unfortunate events, where he has to use the same ending on the second movie. But yeah, I guess that's my negative part about the movie. I love everything else except the ending. But either way, guys, that's my review for Superman. Let me know, guys, in the comment section below what do you guys think about Superman, and do you guys love this movie, or maybe do you guys actually didn't like the movie, and share your favorite moments about the movie in the comment section below, and how do you guys feel about the ending, because like I said before, I don't like it, but maybe you actually like it. I don't know. Share your opinions about the ending in the comment section below, and stay tuned for the Superman new movie reviews. That's gonna be next week. Maybe I'm gonna review Superman 2 at some point in the future, specifically the Richard Donner cut. So stay tuned for that. But again, guys, if you guys enjoyed this review, then make sure to guys, laser that subscribe and like button, and share the videos to your stuff, and stay tuned for more movie reviews in the future. And again, I hope you guys enjoy this review, and I will see you guys in the next one then. Bye.